Oh my god, you spelled my name right.
Yes, I did.
No. Did we already start?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's okay. Cropping's a thing.
Okay, good.
We'll fix it in post. So, alright, so Peace Blaster here, interviewing my friend. I guess you should, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Izzy. Izzy De La Rosa. Been Peace Blaster's fan for almost a year now.
I have a fan? Oh my god.
Fan, friend.
Okay, cool.
Oh, was I supposed to go into more? So I guess, as you guys know, probably by the headline, it's about minorities, and he asked me to speak on behalf because I am Black, Puerto Rican, and white. So, I like video games. That's about it. I don't know.
Alright, so, I just wanted to, so I've been reading a lot of theory on, left-wing politics and, a history of, revolutions, oppression, all that good trap house shit.
Chocolate trap house shit, I heard.
Oh.
I heard that.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's true.
Okay. So, I just have, a series of questions that I'm hoping will spur, a good, insight into what things look like in America for non-white people, because, frankly, myself included, a lot of us white people just have no idea what things look like on the other side of racism and segregation.
Absolutely not.
We just, we just watch Avengers movies and, I don't know, listen to Coldplay. It's all good in the hood. But it's not all good in the hood, and we're going to talk about that.
No, we're going to talk about it. Okay, first of all, if you're white and doing Wakanda Forever, shit's not cute. Stop. Just please, we are proud that you are a part of us, but
all
that
right
right there immediately comes across as, okay.
All right. So, number one. So, America has a very long, twisted history of racism, of pretty much every race except for Anglo-Saxon, British people, maybe. But even then, there's, particulars. So, we had slaves from Africa. We had the genocide of Native Americans. We conquered a bunch of land and territories from Latinx people. We had all but slavery of Chinese people. We've done a lot of ridiculous things. And usually when they rose up, that we silenced them with censorship and often violence from both our government, private citizens, and corporations. Now, obviously most white people are less than aware of this because, we went through public schools, so we got our standard issued whitewashed history where it's we know that slavery was a thing. We didn't really know how bad it got. I don't remember hearing anything about, Chinese oppression. I don't remember a whole lot about Native American stuff. They just said, oh, well, there was this guy Custer who got dead. And that's about it. So, I wanted to ask, so are minorities who went through the same school system, do you feel that they're better educated on these kind of things?
Growing up in North Carolina, it was a extremely racial state, so, our parents mostly had to educate us, if that makes sense, more than the school systems did.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, all through elementary to high school, literally the only time we ever learned about Black History Month was February. The rest of it was mostly American history. We actually didn't have world history until high school. Most middle schools, elementary schools, and stuff like that have world history throughout. North Carolina, you didn't get world history until high school. So we didn't learn about world history until end of high school and stuff like that. So, being a minority, my parents always were hey, you've got to be careful because I wasn't liked much by anybody. The majority of my friend group was mixed, if that makes sense. But anytime I would go hang out with my white friends, no offense to anybody, my parents would be you got to be careful. It's okay for them to be trespassing. It's okay for, this, that, and everything in between. But Like, they'll be, and you know, I thought my parents were joking at one time until we got busted hanging out in the graveyard one night and I was the only one to get in trouble. Like, the cop literally knew everybody else's parents and stuff like that, and his excuse for why he was targeting me was like, oh, well, your parents are antisociable, so.
Did he literally say that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, where I grew up at, cops really dislike minorities and stuff like that. North Carolina is kind of a shoot first, ask questions later if you're any shade but white.
Alright, we're gonna get into police relations a little bit later, but so I have a little bit stranger of like an education background because I was in private school until middle school, and then in high school okay, yeah, guilty, white guilty. And then in high school I was in a couple like magnet programs, but I still had to have the general like U.S. and world history, and they taught us pretty much nothing I hadn't already seen in elementary school. In college, I got a little bit more into it, but only because I went specifically to go seek it out.
Yeah.
Like, there was, like, I took, it wasn't like Intro to African American Studies, it was some like strange hybrid honors course, but they had us read things like, why don't I remember this name? At one point we read like the diaries of like some like slave drivers and that kind of thing, and got to see for real just how messed up things were. And then when we talked about the American Revolution, then it wasn't like, oh well, these great founding fathers, like they wanted like liberty and justice for all. Like, no, it wasn't like that. Like, Britain could have stomped us into the ground if they really wanted to, but we just financially weren't worth it, and that's the only reason we got away.
Yeah.
And then, like, that kind of thing. And the other thing is that people act like slavery only happened in, like, I don't know, Georgia and Alabama, when, like, that happened everywhere. And mostly it was, like, the Caribbean, where they could grow more exotic things that Britain couldn't get elsewhere, and France couldn't get elsewhere, and so on. But even then, it was only like I think they call this poverty porn, where like they only zoomed in on like the absolute worst case of it ever.
Yeah.
And then, but I still had to like branch out entirely independently online to read about things like COINTELPRO, and you know, you heard the words Jim Crow like all the time, but they didn't really talk about what that meant for people or anything like that. And they definitely didn't talk about, like, the Black Panther Party or, like, anybody that actually did anything.
No, absolutely
It was just like, oh, so Martin Luther King was this swell guy, and just suddenly racism died.
Honestly, in North Carolina, when it came to Black History Month, we barely even learned about Martin Luther King. Like, they still whitewashed Black history for us, if that makes any sense. Like, the only thing we ever heard about, really, in Black History Month was, oh, how Abraham saved the slaves, which... I mean, he partly did, don't get me wrong. But, like, they didn't do any hardly new things. We didn't learn about Malcolm X, mostly. We didn't learn about Martin Luther King and stuff like that. Like, the only time that stuff was brought up is they would make us do book reports. And, you know, I guess because of racism differences, the white kids would all do, like, on the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln, and stuff like that. And then us black kids, we would find people like, you know, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, like, hell, even the guy who invented peanut butter, which I can't remember his name right now. Jesus help me.
George Washington Carver?
Yes.
I think? Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, like, I mean, it was just things like that. And, like, one girl asked my friend, I will never forget it, asked my friend, what does peanut butter have to do with anything? And she's like, your white ass is eating it, so obviously that's a win for us. And I'm like, rude, but I see where you're coming from. But, like, so, I mean, history is extremely, extremely whitewashed, and I don't think people realize that. Like, that's like a couple years back when the Confederate flag and everything, where people were like, can you take this part of history away? You know, I lost a lot of friends on Facebook over it because of my agreeance with wanting it gone. And a lot of people are like, oh, you're trying to take white history. I was like, newsflash, sister. All of history is, like, white. Like, the only thing we're asking you to do is literally what Germany did with the Nazi propaganda and got rid of every racial thing. That's all we're asking you to do. You can keep every other part of history, but that Confederate flag does not represent freedom. At the end of the day, to most minorities, it represents racism. I'm sorry. 100% being real.
Well, that brings up a interesting point about like that history, because I noticed that so like I went to college in Kentucky, and I noticed that like that was still a very fiercely debated thing, like even in my like fancy liberal like
Yes.
arts and like whatever program, like that was still like a controversial thing.
Like, I think it gets pushed underneath so many times because a lot of people, okay, so you have trashiness in every minority. I'm not trying to be mean, you know, they make the black people out to be trashy if you live in the ghetto, if you're redneck in the white community, you're trashy, blah, 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 blah. So I think it's because, you know, the majority of the time you see the Republican, or the rebel flag, it's normally associated with rednecks, but I know some businessmen that have that stuff up in their office. So it's like, just because, you know, and not saying all rednecks are trashy, but that's the way that society sees it. Like, oh, this is the trashy side of white side, so why should we care? Obviously, they, you know, but it's not the case when it comes to that flag. It's truly not, because like I said, I know businessmen that have it. I mean, there's some very nice people that I've met that do have it, but I don't think they understand the true meaning of the flag. And there's nothing wrong with that, because after you're raised up with something for so long, like...
Yeah, though I don't like how they reframe it as if, like, what that flag means is up for debate. Because, like, it's not. The Civil War was obviously over, like, slavery. And they're like, no, they fought for states' rights.
Oh.
Yeah, the states' rights to have slaves.
Yeah.
Like, let's not kid ourselves.
Let's be real here. One thing all of us have learned from the 90s and up until now, because they want to change things to preserve white rights. Even my dad, my grandparents, probably his dad, parents, like, the rebel flag has always been known for slavery up until the 2000s. Let's be real here. Like, even in the little bit of black history that they taught us, that was represented as the South's flag, and their rights to have slaves is what that flag was known for. Now, because people want it gone, all of a sudden it's like, oh, there was so much other stuff that went into it. Don't get me wrong, there was a whole bunch of other crap that went into the Civil War, but the biggest part of the Civil War was because of the simple fact that whites didn't want to have to work. It's kind of like the same crap that we're doing now, where, you know, at the end of the day, myself included, because I still don't have a high school education, but you hear people with no high school education complaining like, oh, the Mexicans came over and took our jobs. They took the jobs that you don't want to do. At the end of the day, are you going to want to be outside for 10, 12 hours in the heat picking tobacco? No. Like, those were literally the jobs that slaves used to do back in the days, and the Mexicans were like, hey, they got their freedom, but hey, if you need somebody and I need the money.
Yeah, actually, if we want to talk about labor real quick, that's a really interesting way to go here. Because, you know, it's not like everybody and their mother had a slave. Like,
No.
Like, slaves were expensive.
Slaves
Like,
were very expensive.
very
Only
expensive.
the rich, yet again, only the rich white people had
Yeah,
slaves,
like-
really.
'cause-
Like,
Like, here we go again. Like, it was just like the 1% of the day just created this, like, entirely farcical narrative that, like, oh, the North is, like, oppressing us. We want our rights. And then they sent, like, hundreds of thousands of people, like, off to die
Yep.
so that they could have slaves. Like, it's just funny how, like, you know, that kind of propaganda just permeates history, like, for hundreds of years. Just like, I'm sure that, you know, as ridiculous as it seems now, like, you know, for all we know, if we keep whitewashing history, you know, hundreds of years from now, like, when we're talking about Trump, like, people are gonna, like, talk about how, like, oh my god, what if we just built that border, and, like, that kind of thing. Like,
and, you know, it's sad within the 4 years that he's already been in, I do feel that's where history is going to go, because, you know, we still have people that are like, we need this border, we need this border, we need this border. All I gotta say is history always repeats itself. The Great Wall of China didn't even keep people out. Let's be real here. Like, honestly, like, I find it funny how easy it is for the news and propagandas and stuff to brainwash and stuff people like that, because, like, I still don't know how so many of his voters thought that Mexicans were going to pay for the wall. Because I'm like, yeah, I'm going to pay for the damn wall to keep myself out of your great country that you that you partly stole from us. Because a lot of people don't even realize, like, Texas and a lot of that was originally Mexico, but because it was more profitable, the USA was like, like it was literally like, we're putting a wall up here now. This is ours. Like, I don't know, but I genuinely feel that's where history is headed, because within the 4 years, all I ever hear about is, we'll be so much better when that wall gets built, and I'm just like, I'll be so much better when I get the fuck out, but okay, like, we have to bleep, sorry.
Oh, dude, I don't care.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was one of those channels.
Oh, no.
So.
I think you only have to worry about that if you get, like, monetized, or if you're on, like... Actually, no, you can be monetized and still do it. I think it's, like, if you get on, like, YouTube Red or YouTube TV or whatever.
Or you sell out like Smosh did. I love Smosh, but I'm sorry. Like,
all right, so I want to get like a little bit more back to the like original question. So, so like this history of oppression, so it becomes like more of an oral tradition, like within families at that point.
I believe so, because like I said, we learned nothing from school systems, so my parents pretty much had to teach us and stuff like that, and I don't know how to put it, like, it's bad everywhere you go. Like, a lot of people think the North is better. My parents genuinely moved me to North Carolina because they felt like it would be better being biracial. Like, the town my mom currently lives in, my brother is, like, really one of the only blacks that is in that town. Oh, wow. So, they moved us to North Carolina hoping that, and, I was excited to live down there because, there was different people and stuff like that. But I think it's taught in such a way with different families because, it's going off of how they were raised and stuff like that. So it's hard because it's hard for a lot of minorities to open up to people. Like, I'm friendly with everybody, but it's because I have years experience as retail, so it's like I kind of have no choice but to be friendly with people. Yeah. Plus, I try to see better in people, but it's like, if you ever run into a minority person that's just really not interested, just don't take it, and no personal offense taken. We kind of have to keep our guards up at all times. Yeah, you just gotta do that retail face. Yeah, like with racism on top of that. But at the end of the day, on your question, do I really kind of think that the school systems teach fairly on the education of minorities? Honestly, no. Like, absolutely not. Oh, yeah. Like, not even close. Like, and no offense, with all the budget cuts that they've been doing and stuff recently nowadays, like, I can't even say I defend the teachers anymore, because it's like, it's no offense to the teachers want to teach, but with all the budget cuts and stuff, when I went back to school to get my GED and stuff like that, and I've been hearing from friends that are in school now, because I work with a little 17-year-old girl, and she's like, they don't even teach anymore, they just hand you out a pamphlet and tell you to do it and sit there, so it's become like it's become like kindergarten now. Like, literally, you're sending your kids to school just to be babysat. So, like, I am very scared for this future generation. Oh, yeah, definitely. The teachers gives us somewhat of a transition to a slightly more political aspect here, because those budget cuts are very, very intentional. Yeah, like, I don't blame the teachers whatsoever. I genuinely don't, because, Jared's mother used to be a principal, and I understand that, they want to teach the kids, but with the budget cuts and stuff like that, it's just now become paper-based. Like, honestly, I give it another 20, 30 years, I don't even think schools are going to exist anymore. I think it's just going to be kids sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours a day. That's scary. I can't entirely disagree, though. No. So, how do you feel that politicians running for office will really fight for you on issues of race? I know we're both already laughing. Okay. But I'll let you get the question out. Let me make a quick point here. So 97% of Republican politicians in office now are white, and as are 78% of Democrats. And out of politicians running for office, we have 3% of them are men of color and 1% are women of color as of 2017. Now, we have the squad, so it's gotten, like, maybe the tiniest little bit better, but not
Really?
We have the squad, and ever since they've gotten in, at every turn around, Trump's office has tried to shut them down or shut them up or
shut them out.
Or shut them out. Like, Jesus Christ, Lord knows. They've been doing it to Nancy Pelosi for years, and I don't even think she's just a white woman, isn't she? Does she have a minority in her?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think she's just an old white woman from San Francisco.
Well, you know that goes to show, too. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're a minority. You just have to be a man and white.
Yeah, like for real. I didn't include the full demographics, but if I remember right, especially among Republicans, the male to female ratio is also not great.
No.
So now it's possible to see white people willing to fight for racial justice despite their privilege, or maybe accidentally doing the right thing on occasion as well, but I'd like to hear about the extent to which you feel politically represented in this country.
Okay. So, I've been alive for, 4 presidents now? And honestly, the only one I have ever felt represented was, and I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, is Obama and Michelle, because at the end of the day, a lot of people only saw the fact of, oh, they're racist because of one of Michelle Obama's papers from college, and all it said was white privilege was a real thing, and people don't like hearing that.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's peak racism right there.
Yeah, I have family members that I still have this debate with. I love my Aunt Gail to pieces. If she watches this, I am so sorry, but, I love her to pieces, but every time I post up anything about the Obama, she posts up something about Trump, and I'm just like, I don't have time for your petty bullshit. At the end of the day, I don't, and I've told her before, I don't understand how you can sit here and say you love me, my brother, and stuff like that, and then support somebody who's obviously so racist. But I'm not going to try and drag this question out like we did the last one. How often do you feel that, like he said, there's some white people that do stand for, justice on both sides. Peace Blaster himself is very both-sided. If I had to pick out of this running, and I'm going to get shit for this too, Bernie.
Oh, absolutely.
Biased opinion, I'm from Vermont, but at the end of the day, Vermont is one of the only places where I've really, every time I've gone up there, never experienced racism. I recently went back home about 2 months ago, and down here in the South, oh my God, if you run into anybody at the lake and stuff like that, people are so segregated far apart. They're don't touch me, don't come near me, don't do anything.
Oh yeah.
I was hanging with my nieces, they're 15, 16. We ran into a group of boys, and it literally felt like the good part of a Stephen King book, not the bad part.
Okay.
We're everybody just collided together, we're hanging, jumping off of train track rails, jumping into the water, we're having fun, and I'm like, I miss this, because down south you don't get that. It might have to do with the fact that me being a transgender, multiple biracial person, it might be the reason why so many people are standoffish, but yeah, when it comes to that question, the only 2 times I've ever felt like anybody gave a crap about, a couple times. I like Nancy Pelosi, I like Bernie Sanders, I like the Obamas, and then I can't remember the one black woman from the Supreme Court, but I love the ground that woman walks on.
Oh my God, I should know that.
I can't remember her name.
I should know that.
But every time somebody tries to defend the fact of racism, I want my time. I freaking love her. You keep doing you.
Yeah. Okay. Now, you actually brought up something interesting, the sort of just not government, but just on a you're walking down the street level segregation. So I call this a sort of fear factor with housing segregation and honestly just walking around segregation. So it's no secret that white people, especially if they come from a lot of privilege, will feel very out of place, alienated, in danger, and such when they go to I guess you'd call it majority-minority neighborhoods. And we usually call those, quote, bad neighborhoods. Because, now, of course, there are high crime rates in, some very, low-income white neighborhoods as well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But, I don't know if you'd call this culturally enforced segregation, but what does that look like from the non-white side?
Okay, so from the non-white side, to be truth be told, suburbians scare the hell out of me. Like, anytime I walk into a suburban area, I know that the moment I get out of my car, there's a cop somewhere or there's a white person somewhere looking out there ready to dial 911. Like, I mean, that might...
Oh my god, yeah.
That might seem a little eccentric or overly racial, but like I said, I've had it done multiple times.
I was gonna say, no, that happens. We see it on the news. Like, there was that little girl who was, like, selling lemonade or something.
Oh my god, don't
And
get
then,
me
like,
started.
that lady just called the cops.
And then, you know, this is the thing that pisses me off. Literally where I live at, okay, so the brother of the one girl is biracial where I live at. They were selling lemonade.
Yeah.
The cops didn't fucking show up until the brother walked up, and then all of a sudden the cops show up. Well, it was a little white girl selling lemonade, it was okay. But the moment her brother stepped up, and she's also biracial, her pigment just happens to be lighter.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people don't realize that you can be biracial and be white. Like, my mom is white, Puerto Rican, and black, but at the end of the day, she's whiter than peace because she's a northerner. So,
Yeah.
like, when I remember when we used to get in trouble, because let's be real here, every black parent uses the N-word at one point in time, because that's when you know your ass is in trouble. Like, if we didn't listen, the moment that N-word came out, people be like, she can't say that. And I'm like, no, I promise you that ass whooping I'm about to get, there's a black woman in that woman. Like, let me tell you, like... But, yeah, no, so, good examples. When you're in the car with me, I blast my music. You have no issues with it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're fine with it. We'll drive through, have fun. You'll be bobbing your head, everything. When Jared's in the car with me, let any song come on that's got the N-word or any type of, like, bass line, and he's, like, doing this number, like, slowly getting, but he's like, I'm too white to be in this car. And I'm like, there's no such thing as, well, never mind. I don't finish that. But, I feel safer, honestly, in areas that most people say is bad, because, you know, what a lot of people don't see is that we're so treated differently that, you know, at the end of the day, you're treated like family there. Like, the ghetto that I grew up in, I'm not going to sit here and make it sound like it wasn't ghetto, it was ghetto. But at the end of the day, if anybody else came from out of that territory, messed with me or anything like that, like, even as hated as I was beyond other minorities, but it's because I'm a part of that minority circle, they would still defend me.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
It's like, we're allowed, it's kind of like the big brother aspect, like, we're the only ones allowed to pick on you. Like, this white boy can't pick on you for your skin color, but I can pick on you for your skin color, which
yeah.
it makes no sense, but...
Well, actually, I think it makes a lot of sense, because, now, I promise we're going to get to community policing,
Oh, God.
which literally started as an FBI initiative. But anyway, COINTELPRO, go read about it. I'm going to put a link into the Wikipedia article in the description. Now, yeah, that's just very interesting to hear, because I can imagine that, you know, when you have poverty and you have people that are definitely discriminated against in the majority of society, that they'd want to, you know, have some sort of territory that they could just kind of, like, call theirs and have, like, for lack of a better word, a safe space there.
So, yeah, so for instance, Florida is the best example of that. When I lived in Florida for a short time, I lived in Florida for 6 months. And I think I was the only one in that cul-de-sac completely hated because I was mixed with almost everything. So, like you said, there's segregated sides. Like, literally one side of the street was black, the other side of the streets was white, and then down in the end of the cul-de-sac where I live at was where all the Spanish people were. They, like, called us Little Mexico and everything. But because I had Puerto Rican in me, the Mexicans didn't like me at all either. Like, I mean, it got to the point where they were like, I swear to God, I hate chickens. Like, we had this conversation earlier. Like, I'd rather have a pit bull come after me than a damn chicken. Like, this one guy hated me so much that he trained his chicken anytime his chicken seen me to attack me, so I ended up throwing...
Are you serious?
I mean, I ended up throwing his chicken over into an alligator sanctuary. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I'm an animal lover, but I was so tired of that chicken, I grabbed me a damn bag and I just was like, deuces chicken. Like, I was done.
God.
But I ended up moving back after 6 months. Like, I was like, God, I thought North Carolina was bad, but Jesus Christ, I'm living in a cul-de-sac and I'm getting shit from both ways. Like, damn. Like,
Okay, so, Two things. Okay, so one, I was in South Carolina. Oh, thank you.
I guess I'm shitting like a husky. It's
Yeah,
okay.
I was in South Carolina briefly, and so like I had no idea where I was. Okay, like I was going to visit my then girlfriend's brother, but like I had no idea where all these racial divides were. So I just remember I wanted to go get some Little Caesars because like I fucking love Little
This
Caesars.
is the worst pizza place.
But then like, hey, it's cheap though.
oh my god, you're so white.
So I like I went into this parking lot, and so like I went in to like place my order at Little Caesars, and there was like a Dollar General or something. So I was gonna go get like a 2 liter of soda that's not like $3 or whatever.
Shit, amen.
And I just remember like,
you can get a 3 liter soda now at Dollar Tree for like $1.
oh wow,
Yeah. Oh, you said Dollar General. I thought you said Dollar Tree.
whichever, I
Wow.
don't remember. But I just remember that like I did not see a single white person there. Everybody there was like absolutely black and
Yup.
all staring at me.
Yep.
Like I would have had I wouldn't have felt like uncomfortable if they weren't just like all giving me that look. Like why are you here?
Oh, we
Like,
got a white boy
what's
in the
going
hood.
on?
What's
Yeah,
going on?
like-
Like, you got a camera on you? Who you looking for? like.
Yeah,
And you know, the
like-
sad part is from my understanding, South Carolina's not as segregated as North, is what a lot of people say. But anytime I've been in either of the Carolinas, like, I ain't gonna lie. Like, so I went on vacation with one of my friends, and we went to Oak Island, South Carolina, and it's
Yeah.
like an old white retirement beach home area. There, I was the only.
Sounds like it. I mean, it has oak in the name.
I was
Like
the only tan person aside from the people that were in the kitchen at the damn restaurants. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I was the only tan person, and thank God my summer tan hadn't come in yet. So, like, a lot of people were like, "Oh, you've got a pretty tan," and I'm like, "Yeah." And one of my friend was just like, "Just pretend to be white throughout this whole trip," and I'm like. Okay, I mean, I have a black girl's ass, and I'm gonna sit here and pretend to be white, but I'm gonna do my best. Like, I had to change up my dialogue, everything. It was the worst 5 days of my life. Like,
oh,
I did not feel relaxed after that trip. Like, the only thing I enjoyed was the beaches, but you know, I couldn't even surfboard because I was scared somebody was gonna be like, "Oh, he's a Hawaiian." Like,
oh my god.
like
So, yeah, so it's interesting to know that, like, it does seem to kind of go both ways. Not necessarily fairly.
oh no,
but,
it
like,
goes both ways. But like, back to my previous argument on the first question, it's because we're raised to be very skeptical. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people realize, like, with white privilege, like, you're raised that you don't have to worry about anybody really or anything like that. I mean, unless you've got that racial parent, then it's both ways exactly, where it's like, oh, be careful of black people, blah, 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 or stuff like that. But a lot of my white friends were raised, you know, down in North Carolina that way. Like, I'll just be cautious around black people. Where here in Kentucky, I will say it's like I've not genuinely met a white person that immediately goes to the whole racism bullcrap unless you work at a gas station and you don't fucking turn on the pumps. Then heavens forbid you're the N word this, you're the F word that, you're the C word, every word, everywhere word. Like, it's just so. But like, I will say Kentucky is a little better. Not it's gotten worse, but I think because of political views and the certain person that's in office, racism has gotten 20 times worse within the past 4 years.
Yeah. So I'm actually gonna. I was gonna save this question for last, but actually, it feels more natural to transition to this. So, race relations with law enforcement. So
Well,
obviously,
there is none. There is none. Like, you automatically get pulled over, you black, your ass is getting a ticket, going to jail or something. Like, if you're a black woman, you can't even pull out a tit and be like, "Hey, copper, like, get me out of the ticket."
Alright, so yeah, we have an unarmed person of color killed by police roughly every 48 hours or so. Now that's an estimate. We don't literally have a list, though I'm sure the list exists somewhere. And, but now we all know about these systemic issues, and then of course there's mass incarceration, but I'm just saying, like, you're walking down the street and, you know, you see a police car like 2 blocks down, like, how do you feel? Like,
My automatic reaction is pretty much go the other way, which I know at the end of the day there's going to be the gracious white people or, you know, the cop families that's going to comment, well, that's what makes you look suspicious. I wouldn't have to look suspicious if every time I've ever encountered a cop car I'm in fear of my life. Like,
yeah, like, now I'm gonna do, like, my little, like, white boy thing, and I'll say, you know, I used to be, like, a skater punk, I used to be a pothead, so, like, I've never been, like, particularly
sorry,
fond of
Bernie,
them,
if you're watching this.
but, like...
No, his dad, not Bernie Sanders,
Oh,
his dad.
yeah. Oh, my dad knows.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure he was both, too, but, like,
I've met
because,
his
you
dad.
know, I noticed that, like, for instance, now, this may just be a Kentucky thing, let me know if I'm wrong, but pretty much anywhere you go, there's going to be that guy. He's going to be white and very skinny. He will never have a shirt on ever. He'll have like some tattoos that definitely need to be touched up. And he's going to be sagging his jeans and tweaked out of his mind, and just nobody does anything about it ever.
Yeah, no, that's everywhere.
But
that's everywhere.
yeah, but you know, there's a kid on a skateboard.
And you're automatically
call the
like,
cops.
yep, okay, yep.
There's a teenager that, you know, is smoking some pot in the park, time to call the cops, but, you know, but the difference is, like, that's not going to put my life in danger. It's just going to be a pain in the ass. Whereas,
No.
like, your life could be in danger.
Now, I have one interesting for you. My godbrother back home, Rob, is actually a black ICP member. He was a
Alright.
he was a pothead skateboarder. So he literally is black, but everything else about him is white, and he
Yeah.
got it, like, honestly, okay, so my biggest issue I have is, like, you know, a lot of people tell me I don't understand things because of the fact that I'm biracial. First of all, that needs to stop from both sides. That genuinely does. I don't care if you're white, black, Puerto Rican, Asian. If a child is mixed, you have no right to turn around and tell them you don't understand things because, you know, a lot of the times back even when slavery was a thing, if you were tan skinned like me and biracial, black and white, you were a house nigga at the end of the day. I didn't want to use the word, but that was the term for it. So, you know, a lot of my black friends think like, oh, you get somewhat white privilege. Absolutely the fuck not.
No.
They're no. Like, my thing is I hate when people sit here and say, oh, you don't understand I actually understand what you're going through times two. Like, it doesn't matter if I get a white cop, a black cop, like, neither one of them are going to like me just because of the skin complexion on me. Like, for instance, the cop that I've had a lot of issues with in Georgetown is a young black cop that's trying to prove himself. I've only been pulled over 3 times, and he overheard my accent a little bit because my accent is mixed from where, yes, I'm a Yankee, but I was raised in the South, but every now and then when I get pissed off, the Yankee side comes out.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, you're a New Yorker. He's like, I'm from New York. He's like, we like to cause trouble. I was like, you might like to cause trouble. I'm just trying to get home. I had no idea that my tail light was out. I'll get it replaced and everything like that. You know, like, I was being nice, and he's like, I'll give you a ticket. And I'm like, well, give me a ticket or don't give me a ticket. At the end of the day, I got places I got to be. Like, my dad and everybody is always scared because they're like, the way you talk to cops, you're going to end up getting shot and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I've been shot before. It's not like it ain't going to be better. But like, I mean, my parents raised me not to take no one's shit. Half the time, I only take my own parents' shit. Like, I know a lot of people's gonna think that's being disrespectful and rude, but in today's economy and stuff like that, you've got to have tough skin where you're willing to be like, enough is a fucking enough. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
so I mean, so for races to say that, like, not racist as in racist, but for multiple races to say that biracial people don't understand the problem, like, I can't talk to a black cop, I can't talk to a white cop, I can't talk to an Asian cop, I can't talk to a Mexican cop, like, I'm screwed either way at the end of the day. Like, well, I'll take that back. Because of the fact of me being Puerto Rican and black, I'm often mistaken for Mexican, so I might be able to talk to a Mexican cop, but the fact that, you know, my family never thought it was important for me to learn the language, probably that shit's just right out the door too. Like,
Alright, so a couple things again. One, I just feel like this is just like an educational thing I have to say about the history of biracial people. So, as we mentioned before, slaves were very expensive. Now, this is going to be one of those just like, this is so dark and twisted, it's hard for me to even say it kind of things. So, to save money, slave owners would frequently rape their female slaves and then force them to have children, and then those children would be free slaves, essentially. And then there started to be genetic experimentation where they would try that for multiple generations until they could produce biracial people that were like as white as they could make them, with them still being considered a minority.
Yep.
And then they sold those as prostitutes to white people.
Yep.
So yeah, it doesn't matter how like light or dark skinned like within biracial you get, like you are going to be treated like a minority.
Yep.
That's just inevitable.
And
like,
I mean,
literally by design.
Well, you know, let's come off of the whole like biracial and black thing for a minute. Like a lot of people don't realize that when America was first started, Scottish people were sold as slaves, and their reasoning for that was because their pigment of white was whiter than the Americans' white. So it's not.
You can be too white?
Yeah, you can be too white.
Oh my god.
A lot of people forget that Scottish people were sold as slaves too, because of the simple fact that their pigment is almost paper white and stuff like that. So, you know, not to every white person, because at the end of the day, you know, you're a good person, your family's a good person. There's multiple good white people that I've met, but I mean, at the end of the day, the white race just to me is awful. Like, extremely awful. Like,
yeah.
You sold the black people, you sold your damn selves. Like, I mean, for God's sakes. The Chinese, I mean, y'all ended up slaughtering Indians just because of the simple fact that you didn't want to worship fucking Catholic religion, took their land and everything, and then nowadays have an issue when somebody doesn't want to say one nation under God because we're supposed to worship your fucking flag.
Oh, okay, I gotta hit you with two more fun facts that are not fun. One of them kind of is.
Sorry, I went off a little deep in there.
No, you're good.
The anger inside me just was like, whoosh, let me get it out.
I was about to jump in and like ask you for clarification about Indian versus Native American, but both of those happened. So it was just, you know, like one was people in the U.S., one was Britain directly.
Yes, so Native American and Indian both. They went after both. And me and my dad got into a heated debate, like, honestly, I think 2 days ago. Like, it was like, I told him I didn't honestly feel comfortable celebrating Thanksgiving anymore.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason I still kind of celebrated is because I was raised up that it was a family thing. Does that mean that I sit here and blindly ignore the fact that the Native Americans fed the white man and then, like, within the next week they annihilated half of their race? Absolutely not. Like...
Yeah,
my dad actually upset at me a little bit by defending it because, you know, he's just like, oh, I'm tired of everybody bitching and stuff. And I'm like, you are more Native American. Like, I have Native American in me, obviously. You can tell by the high cheekbones and stuff. It's just not as prominent in me as is my dad. My dad in North Carolina is what they would call a red bone nigga. Like, he's mostly red-skinned, like anybody who's ever met my dad, because he's mostly Native American. My great-grandma was full Native American.
Yeah.
So, like, when I was sitting here, I'm like, so your people want it to stop, but you're up here defending it just because it's been going. Like, my dad was raised in the 50s, so there's part of him that was brainwashed that I don't ever think it's going to unhappen, but...
Alright, so I'm including in the video description a list of wars involving the United States, also on Wikipedia. I'm a big fan of Wikipedia. And I think you'll find that the first several pages of it are just nothing but genocidal massacres.
Yep.
Yeah, that's next level messed up. Now, also, since we're talking about Thanksgiving, this is another one of whitewashing of history things. The Pilgrims were terrible people.
Awful people.
Like, they got kicked out of Britain for a reason.
Oh,
like,
God,
they were,
awful.
like, absolutely stuck-up, maniacal Puritans. Like, they came here so that they could be more oppressive than they were allowed to be in Britain. Like,
I mean, I'm
so sick of that narrative.
Yeah, and you know, so many people's like, this is the land of the free, and I was like, is it? Because if I'm not white, Christian, or, you know, well-educated, I'm automatically deemed as a hoodlum. Like, I mean, when I first got here, my husband's, boyfriend's family kind of they automatically racial profiled me. I don't care what they say. Things have gotten better now, but like, yeah, my mom moved me here because, you know, I was pretty much homeless and stuff like that. I was just supposed to come down for a visit and stuff like that, and Jared didn't want me to move back. So, yeah, I came here only with $100 and stuff like that, and automatically his mom was like, oh, back to the fact that I'm transgender, so if you hear me say he, because that's what they referred to me as, they were like, oh, he's trashy, he's this, he's that, and everything like that, and he can't keep a job, and everything like that. Like, I have mental issues, but I do pretty fair on keeping a job. Like, yeah. It's just when you have certain mental issues, you go through cycling periods, so I'm not going to lie, it seems like every 6 months I end up losing a job and then finding another one, but been doing good with this last job, honestly. I'm pretty proud of myself. It's been 8 months working, 60, 70 hours a week and not even being a manager. Yeah. Like, honestly, I'm a little bit upset and hurt. Like, if they watch this video, I honestly don't care. Like, I literally had to go to the hospital because my sciatic nerve is so inflamed from where I've been standing so much. And the assistant manager just came in and was throwing things everywhere and stuff like that because I asked her to come in early, but I was like, if you can't get here until 6:30 when you come in, I'll wait. So she willingly came in early on her own accord and then treated me like crap. So I'm just like, as much as I do for you guys, like, it never ends. It really does. And
yeah, if you'll let me rant about the Pilgrims just a little bit more, the Salem Witch Trials, that was them.
Yep.
And if you ever had to read the Scarlet Letter in high school for like AP Literature or whatever, that was also them.
Yep.
Yeah, they were just terrible people that we need to not put on a pedestal, and that's not even getting to Christopher Columbus.
Oh God.
Like, just, oh my God. Do we just need heroes from that era so badly that we're just willing to cover up, like, all this terrible stuff?
While we're speaking of cover-up, I loved how, like, Disney tried to turn it into a love story with Pocahontas and Christopher Columbus!
God, no.
That was one of my favorite Disney movies growing up just because she had tan pigment, and I'm like, oh, this is beautiful, and then you actually learn about it in history, and you're like, Jesus Christ, Disney lied to me, like...
I mean, like, a lot of the, like, Disney's whole thing is they pulled a lot of stories from the public domain, a lot of which were Brothers Grimm fairy tales, but, like, that's a whole nother level of grim.
Also,
like,
can we just talk about how, like, you know, so many people are hating on the Arabic people and all that type of stuff, the people that wear the hubais and stuff, but when the remake of Aladdin came, it, like, was, like, a very big popular movie.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, so you can literally call anybody with tan skin that wears a habai, like, a terrorist, but you go and watch this movie, like, cool! Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, that brings me to another one of my fun facts, and this one actually is fun.
Okay.
So, Caucasian people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, we're from the Caucasus Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you go look at a map of Europe and Asia, I don't know why they're considered separate continents, because they're, like, right there. But anyway, so it's a huge mountain range that goes through Eastern Europe down through the Middle East. And a very, very significant portion of the Caucasus mountain range is in, like, northern Turkey, bordering on, you know, all those miscellaneous territories we're bombing probably right now. And so I just think it's hilarious that, like, white people are like, oh, you look like you are of terrorist descent, when, like, you know, ethnically you probably are too.
Oh my God.
Like, it's just ridiculous.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because Lord knows, with my pigment, like, I get called everything in the book. I get called Mexican, I get called Egyptian, I got called Islamic terrorist.
I think you mentioned Hawaiian earlier?
I got called Hawaiian, but, you know, that's just because I'm plump. So that's all that is. Like,
oh wow!
Like,
I didn't even think about that.
Not trying to be mean. If you are a plus size Spanish person, you are immediately Hawaiian. Like, and that's mean, because not all Hawaiians are heavy set. Like that. Oh Jesus! Don't get me started. No, don't drop your bottle of water.
That would have been bad.
You forgot to sponsor your water like most news channels did. Today is sponsored by Nestle Splash. We're not really sponsored, just.
Oh my God, no. I would not feel morally comfortable endorsing Nestle, but you know, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, so here we are. All right. So,
last question.
Yeah, last question. This is another. This is something we haven't really gotten to. We got to it a little bit with talking about Pocahontas. So, media representation of people of color. It seems very hit or miss because we have a lot of like successful people of color in media, but only within like I guess you could call it allowed things. Like obviously we have a lot of athletes, rappers, and so on, but there's still definitely a segregation within media where like we have white people music, we have black people music. We have, like, Latinx music, we have Asian music, and then it's similar for, like, movies and TV shows and all that.
Well, to start off, one of the perfect things that it's a good thing me and my sister have been talking this past week, so one of the things my sister brought up to me that, even me being biracial, because it's literally just targeted towards the black side, didn't even realize, is that bleaching. Bleaching in the music industry is a very, very big thing, and a lot of people don't realize it because we've just grown used to it over the years.
Oh, could you go into what that is?
Yeah, so pretty much a lot of people, the biggest thing that we heard about bleaching was Michael Jackson, for instance. He had, I think, lupus or something close to it like that.
Yeah.
So, he just decided at the end of the day, okay, this is where my pigment's heading anyway, and he went on ahead and did it. Now, that did have a lot to do with the fact of his father being a very abusive asshole. So he was just like, I'm done. But my sister brought it up, and I never noticed it before, but Beyonce, for one. The music industry and stuff like that does not take you seriously if you're too dark-skinned. And I've never noticed it, but if you look at a lot of our black artists from back in the day, they were a lot darker than what they are now. Like Nicki Minaj, when she first came out, I personally love her. I know a lot of people hate her, but she's from the islands and stuff like that, so she was like dark. She's now light-skinned. Beyonce was dark. She's now light-skinned.
Interesting.
The only one so far that I don't think has started the bleaching is Cardi B, but that's because she's like I am. She's Afro-Latino, so she's already got the lighter skin tone. But like a lot of our music people that are extremely popular right now are bleaching their skin because they kind of have no choice. And like, Missy Elliott, who is dark-skinned, you don't hear about her often in the music industry unless she's, like, collaborating with somebody or something like that because, she kind of refused to do it. Lil' Kim, for example, she don't even look the same anymore. I used to love Lil' Kim back in the day. I still love and support her, but, she looks almost Asian now with all the surgeries that she's had done and the bleaching and stuff like that. A lot of people... Like I said, a lot of people, even myself who's biracial, unless you're in the black culture, you don't really know about the bleaching and stuff like that.
Yeah, like, I had no idea about that. Like, my mind is being blown in real time.
Yeah, like, my sister brought that up to me, and I was like, holy crap, it's true, because, like, I went back and looked at some older videos, and I'm like, yeah, Beyonce was a lot darker, and, Nicki Minaj was way darker, and I'm like, holy crap.
Wow, that is insane. That is beyond insane.
Now, when it comes to movie, TV, and propaganda stuff and stuff like that, I still think that the black people still more towards ghetto trash and stuff like that. I've noticed with a lot of newer action-packed movies, it's always like some black gangster that's behind everything or stuff like that.
Yeah, I never saw the movies, but, when I'm sitting there watching trailers, that's definitely what I'm seeing.
And a lot of it's I don't know how to put it. It upsets me. Like literally, I remember growing up and one of my friends thought the ghetto was literally like the movie Friday, and I'm like, don't get me wrong, certain ghettos is like the movie Friday, but not all of them. But it's just sad, and then I don't like how oppressing TV is. Like the TV show Blackish, if I remember right, got canceled because it was making white racial jokes and stuff like that. But
oh no.
Yeah, but white people can make it. Like every time they put a black woman in a TV show that's comedy wise, she has to be the black sassy bitchy woman, and a lot of people don't realize that that's what most people think the majority of black women are now, is that we're black, bitchy, and sassy. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm bitchy, but at the end of the day, it's because you get so sick and tired of people's crap that you just finally build up to it. You're like, no, if people's gonna have an opinion of me,
Yeah.
don't know what to tell you. Like, so
yeah, absolutely. Like, now, this is another one of those epitome of white ignorance things. Until I watched the Boondocks on Adult Swim when I was up like way too late at night in high school once, I literally didn't even know what BET was. Like, I didn't know that was a thing that existed, like, at all.
can't relate.
I had no idea.
Can't relate. Wow.
But then, like, I see their, like, extremely harsh criticism of it, and I'm like, oh my god, what is this? And then I look it up, and I'm like, oh wow, there's, like, this whole facet of American culture I didn't even know existed.
Yeah. Yeah, like, and it's sad because it's not even just represented in, like, minorities and stuff like that. Like, we gonna open up a can of worms. Like, the LGBT spectrum, too, is kind of awful, to be real with you. Like, I mean, it's everywhere. And, you know, it's sad because, you know, hate is a thing that is taught. It's not born into somebody and stuff like that. Like, no matter how much, you know, people tried to change it back when Hitler and all that shit. Like, oh, he was born with hatred. His mom was a whore that was taken advantage of and everything and stuff like that. And people judged him off of his mom, so he's like, fuck you. Like, at the end of the day, do I agree with what he did? Absolutely the hell not. Like, absolutely not.
Oh, there are a lot of factors that went into it.
I mean, there's more than just that one, but, you know, I mean, it's just, you know, hatred over time, like,
it's like, for instance, one of my friends, like, she started dating somebody that was non-binary. And I think her daughter was, like, 2 or 3, maybe 4 at the time, and, like, she just picked up the, like, pronouns like that. Like,
yeah.
Because, like, that wasn't, you know, reinforced or, like, alien to her at all yet.
No, and the LGBT spectrum, when we go into that one, like, it's okay if you're gay. It's okay if you're lesbian. It's okay for other things like pansexual and stuff like that, but once you're bisexual, trans, non-binary, and stuff like that, it's like, it's extremely rough and stuff. And in that way, I see it as a racism type of thing too, because at the end of the day, people can't choose what they are. Like, I don't choose to be a transgender biracial woman because literally when you talk about minorities and shit, like, I'm hitting the floor because, like, I'm hated by blacks, I'm hated by whites, I'm hated by almost every race. I'm hated by the gays because, you know, the simple fact they just, oh, you're a very feministic gay guy, but I can't do nothing with you because that doesn't turn me on. Straight men don't want me because of the simple fact they're like, oh, you look like a woman, but downstairs there's not. Bisexual guys are, like, only using me for fetishes at the end of the day. Straight men only use me for fetishes at the end of the day. Like,
yeah.
So, you know, it's like, it's super hard and stuff like that because, like, I don't think a lot of people realize, and, you know, it upsets me because it goes both ways because, like, I had the biggest issue, and me and you were talking about this prior to the video, like, my biggest issue I had was, like, the black minorities hating on the LGBT spectrum, and I'm like, what gives you the right to hate somebody for just trying to be who they are when you are literally, all of history, been hated for just the color of your skin?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because that was another thing I've seen, like, discussed is that LGBTQ representation and, like, allies and stuff seems to work a lot differently within that racial minority.
All I'm going to say is with the LGBT spectrum, it's kind of become a closed thing like it has with racism because, you know, the LGBT people, LGBTQ, or I don't know the whole... I stopped after LGBTQ. I'm not doing the whole alphabet. I'm sorry if I forgot anybody. You know what I'm saying. What you know? I can't say the gay society because that's going to offend somebody. Jesus Christ. The LGBTQ... The LGBTQ has kind of just become closed, like, at the end of the day, because they were tired of everything. Like, I mean, you said when you were in high school and stuff, you were an ally, and then, like, freaking 2012 hit or something, and they were like, you're no longer welcome because you're straight. And
yeah, that was a real thing, because back then, like, we didn't have the whole alphabet yet. But back then we just called it GSA. It was just Gay Straight Alliance, and I was actually the president of that club in my high school for several years.
Yeah, and then they just
kicked them out.
Eventually,
like, Yeah, when the SJW movement really like got going, like I just got like just thrown out of there.
And you
So
know,
that's my headspan.
it's sad, and it might sound hypocritical of me because it's hard for me to be around straight people at times too because I'm surprised I'm using the straight term because it's become an inside joke. We call straight people breeders now.
That's great.
Like, y'all ain't even known as straight no more. You are literally just known for the breeding purposes.
That's hilarious.
The fact that you don't want a kid is why I don't call you a breeder. I'm like, well, you don't want to have child.
I'll laugh at anything if it's funny.
There you go. So that's another thing too. Like with the way the world has gotten, I don't think people get sarcasm anymore. Just try to have fun in life. Everybody's like, and I'm just like, just try and live a little. Like, damn,
Yeah.
like
We have murdered satire and sit on its corpse like a throne.
Lord knows, like it's like I can't go into it too much because, like I said, being trans, I'm kind of locked out of the LGBT community myself, and it's sad. Like I don't hang around a lot of people anymore like that. I used to go to the bar complex and stuff, but I would be getting looks and stuff. And I'm like, this is supposed to be like a sanctuary for me, and you're just judging me as much as the breeders are, as we call them. I'm like, absolutely not.
That brings up an interesting point that I was also going to make. Like, because for instance, like, when I didn't get, like, literally, like, thrown out. It's just that, like, things got very tense and I sat down because I was like, okay, we have gay marriage now, so, like, I understand that, like, you want people who are actually LGBTQ plus to, like, lead your LGBTQ plus movement. That makes sense. I'll step down. But then, even after I, like, stepped down, things just still kept getting more and more intense anyway, until eventually I had to just be like, I'm going to cheer you on from a vast distance now.
And
But I wanted to... Yeah, but I wanted to ask you because I'm wondering about a kind of similar phenomenon going on with that community that seems to be going on with racial communities where, we have things like Little Italy or, the ghetto and so on, where we just have, like, they just kind of establish this territory to, like, kind of claim as their own. I've noticed that the LGBTQ plus community is starting to do that a little bit as well.
And it's coming down to the fact, and it's been this way for years. Like I told him earlier when I was talking to him on the phone, like, it's been that way for years, like the 70s and up. Like, if you were a lesbian, it was okay because it's a dominant man thing. Like, it's like, oh, it's okay for a woman and a woman to be together because at the end of the day, that turns me on. If you were gay, it was disgusting. They didn't want nothing to do with it. Oh, two men together, that's sick. Transgender was the same way. It's a dude with a wig, blah, 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 blah. Like, so it's always been that way. So, even though there's a whole spectrum, lesbians still tend to hang around with lesbians because they understand their problems. Gays still tend to hang around gays because they understand their problems. Transgender people, we're all we have is because, like, we're hated by everybody. Like, bisexuals, they join in with us because, they were hated by everybody, but I feel like that had a lot to do because when we were like in high school, the bisexual thing was like a fad. Like it was like
God,
if you were emo and bisexual, you were like the popularest guy in school. Even though half of you, some of you that I know today, probably ain't bisexual. You just still go off of it because you've been living the life for so damn long that you just like, I don't want to lose my cool points.
Yeah, well, see, what would happen? And I heard about this. As long as we're going that high school route, is what would happen is because ultimately what that really is cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
Because then they'd meet somebody who, like, actually is, and then, they'd make out a little bit and it'd be, like, fun or whatever, and then the other person's like, oh, well, I want to go all the way. And the person that's just kind of donning that is like, oh, whoa. So I just thought that was hilarious.
So since we're on that topic, yes, that is exactly how it goes. Let's be real here. Having the brain of a woman, but everything else of a man, I can speak for both sides. Men are adult children. I don't care how much hate I get from it.
Legend of Zelda.
I don't care exactly which. I mean, he's like the body of a 24-year-old, the brain set of a 60-year-old, but he still does immature shit.
Oh my god, like, there's a reason I didn't let you see upstairs.
I'm going up there later. I'm going to find out what's going on. But no, so men are adult children. And at the end of the day, the biggest issue with, like, bisexuality and men that are turned on by transgender women it all comes down to who has the bigger junk. Okay, that has always been the issue.
Wow.
With the whole entire community, because like straight men, they don't understand that. They're like, oh, you're not sticking your thing in me and stuff like that. It's like, you realize in order for this to work, somebody has to be the submissive here. Like, somebody's got to play in straight terms the woman here. Like, just because I'm hitting on you doesn't mean I want to put it in you. It might be the other way around. Yeah. But, you know, me and my sister were watching this TV show last night called Pose, and it really got me into it. And this guy was, like, really into this transgender girl. She pulls down her pants, and she's like, oh, I'm just saving up money to get rid of my little friend. And he's just, like, immediately turned off. He's like, well, she ain't little. I'm just like, so, and it's sad because if you're, like, that's going to sound extremely racist. If you're mixed with different minorities, it tends to be bigger. So, me being the type of girl I am, liking white guys, 9 out of 10 times I scare most white guys. Not trying to brag online, just saying.
That's tragic, but also really funny. Because I just find toxic masculinity hilarious sometimes.
I mean, and that's all it is. Like, a lot of bisexual guys that I've ever been attracted to and have remotely even thought about giving me a chance, they're just like, no. They were cool with everything else until the pants come down. They're like, no, absolutely not. And I'm like, yep, okay, cool, we're done here. Like,
oh my god.
But that's what it comes down to. I hate to say.
That is probably the most petty thing I've heard.
Like, honestly, I'm jealous of lesbians because at the end of the day, it's like just whose fingers game better is what happens. Like, I mean. I wish I could say I'm joking about it, but it's real. Like, I don't know what it is with masculinity, but men feel threatened if their little John is little.
Well, you know, if I could get back on my soapbox for a second, phallic, like, symbolism is, like, everything in society. Like, this mic looks like a dick. This water bottle looks like a dick.
The hookah that I blew on last week and everybody keeps thinking it's a glass dildo was actually a hookah pipe.
Yeah, and like my vape, wherever it is right there, looks like a dick. And like, you know, it's like, did you ever read Death of a Salesman?
Oh my god.
But like, the whole thing is like, he felt like he emasculated his boss because he stole his like big fountain pen that was like, you know, looked kind of like a dick. Like, it is absolutely ridiculous how obsessed men are with dicks.
I mean, it is. And it's like, that's why I turned around and told my dad one day, I was like, I don't think there's such thing as a truly straight man, in all honesty, because y'all are so worried about whose is bigger. At the end of the day, I think y'all are more dick obsessed than the damn gay people are, to be real. Like, if I got to see one more big fucking truck that's louder than hell, just so I can be like, oh, there goes small dick Johnny going down the street, like, it's so.
Oh my god.
Newsflash, guys. Like, if you have a big truck, that's an immediate turnoff to women. Like, it's like, oh. Like.
And speaking as a straight man, to men too. Like.
Yeah, I mean, you got a Prius. You're not trying to overcompensate for anything.
Yep. I'm trying to compensate for my carbon impact, but that's about it. I'm sorry, I had to.
You remind me of that one woman from that video where they had like the truck and the Prius, and she gets out of her car to cuss out the guy and stuff like that. I'm trying to save the planet. You're an asshole.
Oh my god. I mean, there are people that actually need trucks. Like, you know, if you live like 50 miles into the wilderness with like no real road, I get that, but like. If you live in the middle of, like, a metropolitan area and, like, you've moved, like, maybe 3 times in your life, there is no reason for you to have a truck.
Like, my ex, he's currently trying to find a truck, which I understand because he's wanting to do lawn care. You have to have a truck for that type of business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, so it's not like we immediately think, like, oh, you're small dick just because you have a truck. It's when it's, like, supersized, fucking big wheels, lights underneath, loud going down the street.
Yeah.
You're just blowing $20 right there to insert your dominancy. Like, I can't relate. I'm poor as hell. Let me ever, like, fucking rev my engine and $20 be gone. I cry.
Yeah. Well, it's been a little over an hour now. I thought that was quite fun and informative. I learned a lot that I had no idea about. That bleaching thing just blows my mind, though. That is so messed up.
It's blown my mind. I've overheard of it a couple times, and I'm just like, this is a real thing? Like, I knew Michael Jackson did it, but like I said, it's because he had lupus or whatnot, and then it went to his dad's thing and stuff like that, and I'm just like, wow, okay.
All right. Well, that was fun.
Yep.
All right. Peace. See you.
Bye.